With the recent trend in gaming being releasing something unfinished and unoptimised being normal, it made me realise that the situation will only get worse. So over the past few years we've obviously been more aware than we ever have of bad games. The only problem is younger audiences and people who don't have easy access to internet or let alone look at it, they don't seem to care, and all these issues seem normal. I sort of realised this when Starfield came out, and some people I know were playing it and generally didn't take an issue with it for any of it, which is odd because everyone else didn't like it, and it just made me realise, like, oh, well, I guess they're not people who are mainly on the internet, so they probably don't care. And maybe it's like a herd mentality sort of thing, where people just rally behind the next thing, and I've noticed this anyway with like social norms and stuff. Also, I'm talking about wokeness, but I'm also talking about language. But generally there are good reasons to follow a herd mentality, but there are also bad reasons. I think one of them is like how we use mental illness and mental health as insults, which is akin to saying, so like the F word or the homophobic one or the N word, because it's literally a term used to, I guess, belittle or discriminate against someone. And typically when you hear terms like, I'll use examples because they're currently not for some reason condemned, even though they should be, but schizo or autist, or like even back in the day we had a term for special needs people like spaz, and it's horrible. Like, people shouldn't be using it because there are people out there who can't control that thing. You know, people with schizophrenia who can't control what they hear or see, because again, it's usually in their head. It's not necessarily this oh, there's a thing in the corner of the room looking at me sort of thing. They're completely different things, but they are still under the umbrella of schizophrenia, which is why those sort of things don't really make sense, like even if you're describing it. But I'm just using it to show solidarity. Well, what do you know about schizophrenia? Because that will show solidarity. Not using the term in a joking way. But it sort of brings into the conversation about my theory, at least, on why games are doing so poorly these days. And why we haven't had a proper good game in quite a while, and we've had good games in the past 5 years apparently. I saw a list actually shared to r/gaming. Some games I recognise, and I think like 3 or 4 I don't. Just surprising, like the top 25 games on, I think it was Metacritic. Some games I'm surprised. I wonder if I can find that actually. Top 25 games, past 5 years, r/gaming, because it'd be there. 1 year ago, nope. Nope. Where the fuck is that? It's probably somewhere, I don't know. Top games? I don't know, it's interesting. I could go through this if I could find it. See what's going on. No. Half these aren't even related. Top 10 games of all time in 2025? No? That's someone else's list? That's weird. I'll try Metacritic, but yeah. Like, the current landscape of gaming is Metacritic, so what is the point? No, Metacritic. No, best games of the 2020s according to Metacritic. So far this year, first Baldur's Gate, second House in Fata Morgana. I've never heard of this game. Third Elden Ring, fourth Tears of the Kingdom, fifth Persona 5 Royal, sixth Astrobot, 7 Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, 8 Metaphor Infantagio, 9 God of War Ragnarok. I'm surprised Metaphor is higher than God of War, that's weird. I don't think the game was amazing, but it was good from what I've watched of it. Last of Us Part 2 is number 10, 11 is Half-Life Alyx, 12 is Hades, 13 is Clair Obscur, 14 is Super Mario Wonder. I've barely seen anything of that game. 15 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. 16 is Forza Horizon 5. 17 is Street Fighter 6. 18 Blueprints. Is that the first indie? I'm not sure if House of Fata is one. I'm pretty sure that's the first indie, which is also kind of sad. It was Hades, yeah, Hades is one. Duh. I forgot about that. And there's 19 Final Fantasy 14 in 4K. 20 of 50, which is an indie game as well. 21 Against the Storm, never heard of it. 22 Microsoft Flight Sim, obviously have heard of it, I've actually seen it, I've actually looked at my own location through that, which is fun. It's kind of interesting actually, because it doesn't render it properly, but you can still sort of make it out. I recommend you do that actually, look for a flyby on YouTube or around the area and you'll see eventually. 23 Slay the Princess, Pristine Can't have heard of that. I think it's that text adventure game. Text and image adventure game, a novel really. 24 I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. I haven't heard of that. And 25 is Crusader Kings 3. Was that the one with incest? Yeah, for some reason that was a sticking point. Anyway, it's weird because all these games are by supposedly AAA developers, except for a few that aren't, say, in indie games and probably double A. Let's be honest, I'll probably misindied them. No, misidentified. But there are very real good indie games that aren't showing there. And it's kind of problematic because it means there's less exposure for quality games, and that means they are compromised because they're not getting the attention they deserve. You know, I constantly talk on about Monument Valley 1 because it's just an incredible game. It's one of the best puzzle games I've ever played, and I say that having played Portal 1 and Portal 2 of it at some point. And even like Antechamber, which was amazing too. I've also played other puzzle games here and there on my phone and stuff. But nothing compares to Monument Valley 1. It's just an incredible experience. But where is that on the top games list? It's just surprising because it should be. It should be on those lists because it is literally a good game, and Monument Valley 2 I remember not being as great. I might have to replay it just to be sure, but even then, like, Monument Valley 1 was just peak. It's the best puzzle game ever. And it doesn't get any attention, which is just baffling. So, this sort of leads into the theory again I mentioned earlier about how the gaming world and just gaming society, I guess you could call it, is heading in this direction where it favours the bigger games, the ones with, for some reason, more quantity, like more hours or more development time, which isn't always a good thing. And I say this because it's a concerning tone of like societal attitudes as well. Because the current problem we're in is the games that we see now are marketed towards children. And this includes something like GTA 6, believe it or not. The reason is because these are very popular games and they're very attractive games. Likewise with like Genshin Impact and I'll get started, like animes like Uwuka and Squelch. Sorry. Got a bit carried away there. But literally that's the reason why it's so attractive to children, and it's kind of a disturbing reality and a lack of education that can cause that. You know, if people aren't taught to withhold, obviously, these urges, like, again, minors, because this is important, by the way. Like, when I was young, I was looking at porn. It's not surprising. If I found out there was a game like Genshin Impact, it's like, fuck yeah, I'll be on that right away. But that's the problem. We're not really taught about what's so restraining? I mean, setting boundaries, I guess, to tell them. Yeah, we're not taught to sort of reel ourselves in, I think that's the actual term, when it comes to these feelings, and that is a problem in itself. Like, the education system has failed us a lot of times. It's also failed on the fact that we need to acknowledge that we need critical thinking to even make society a better place to begin with. And so that causes more issues, but it gets even more complicated than that, believe it or not. Because the other issue we encounter now is, other than there being low-paying jobs, obviously because of capitalism and billionaires, they end up causing developers not to be as motivated, and that's why you end up with absolute garbage like, just going to list a few anyway, if someone probably well done by crunch or something, but you get crunch as well, unpaid overtime, and ends up with things like Gollum from the Lord of the Rings, ends up with the other Lord of the Rings game, I think, that's in crunch. The AAA one. Is it Warner Bros? I can't remember. I think you end up with something like, fuck, the name. Yeah, something like Anthem, Concord. These games are generally low quality, at least Concord I remember being decent, but wasn't good enough. And then the common trend is that they're developed for either too long or they're developed in a short amount of time and they don't do anything. Like, there's no solid ground here. It's not like Eureka moment, it's basically development hell. And that Saints Row, I remember, I got that game. Like, the reboot was just, it was shocking when that came out, and it's like, oh, I wanted to like this. I wanted it to be good. And it just wasn't. Like, there's a massive amount of disappointment I had from that, because, again, I wanted it to be good. It wasn't a fact of me like saying, oh, it just looks like a cringy game for 10-year-olds. It wasn't the only factor, it just didn't look good as a game. The story was obviously bad, but the characters also bad. The world insane. Again, very bad. It just wasn't Saints Row. And I looked into the documentary about this from someone who visited Volition a few years ago, and he said that there are a lot of ideas there that would have actually made the game really good. But they supposedly changed it because of the, I think it was like a manager or something, maybe a CEO even, just saying that it's too violent. Like, what the fuck do you think Saints Row is? So it got turned down, and suddenly you don't have any like waveable dildo bats or even fucking sex dolls. Come on, too violent, like, are you kidding? It's a fucking joke, right? Like, no game is ever too violent. Like, it's just so dumb. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, we got a game that was like designed for 10-year-olds and just didn't do anything. It failed and flopped, and it got what it deserved. I think a similar thing happened with Just Cause series from like 4 onwards, and that just didn't go well. There is that worrying trend of games being possibly like, I don't know how many reboots there are actually, but I think some have been rebooted and failed like that. Like Saints Row was, when they really should have just made a Saints Row game that basically took everything that the old games did, or even just remastered all the old ones. And that was an easy solution, because Saints Row 2 was unoptimised as fuck on PC, and it looks bad still. It has some good areas of graphics and stuff and animation, but it still looks bad. Saints Row the 3rd got a remaster and it was okay, I think, what I remember. Saints Row 4 didn't really need one, and Get Out Fail didn't really need one either. And I've never played Saints Row 1, but I think I would if it was remastered. So that brings into question, like, why do games keep failing? If they're obviously appealing to like other audiences, then why do they fail? This comes with the second theory that I have. Other than there being low pay, low wages, and just developers not being motivated to even try anymore in gaming and stuff, because they know that they just need to put it out there just to get a paycheck rather than actually do a good job because they're getting low pay, so they don't really owe that to you as a game developer or publisher. It's also the fact they're designed with player retention in mind, and this is an important thing. Let me just double check I've got the definition right. Player retention, no, meaning. Oh, for fuck's sake, what's it come on Reddit post? Player retention is a term used to describe the ability of a game platform or company to retain its players or users over a period of time. Yeah, that's what I thought it meant. It's one of the biggest factors that's currently tearing gaming apart for younger audiences and even older ones. You know, if you look at a lot of the older gamers who grew up with something like Final Fantasy, or even, in my case, like Saints Row or something, then you see that they tend to strive more towards a game like, I don't know, like Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate, and that's because these games are designed without player retention in mind. Actually, you progress at them with your own pace, and you don't have any sort of drawback to not doing that. Meaning you can pick up and play it whenever you want, and however you want. And that's one of the big draws to it. But nowadays it's become so normalised with younger audiences, and to an extent myself as well, that you need a game with more hours to play, and even like a system like a Battle Pass, to even have it be a game you enjoy. And that's not good for a lot of reasons. It means that these games overlap with, as I previously mentioned, like better games and even indie games, meaning that your time is drawn away from that and put into a game like this, like Final Fantasy. Yeah? And really, that's my biggest critique of this. It's so fucking long. It doesn't need to be that long. Yeah, it literally draws your time away, and you could be spending that playing other games and buying smaller indie games and stuff, and that could help, again, indie games to get off the ground and essentially into the mainstream. Not necessarily to become like AAA developers, but to actually give players a better gaming experience. Like, it's just so obvious. Yeah, look at Steam new and trending. Like, I think most of these are like indie games, which is good. And they're all very positive. That's good. Sharp Hero Factory, Roman Triumph, Survival City Builder. That's interesting. Monster Care Simulator. That looks good. Looks a bit AI slop though. Round a card. Not my sort of thing, but Arena Breakout Infinite looks like a AAA shit. Or Unity asset thing. No, I'm Not Human. I've seen this horror game. I've heard of it actually. Doesn't appeal to me. Greenland looks like an RTS shooter, maybe a top-down shooter actually. A twin-stick shooter, it says. Trolley, seen it, looks funny. A Pinata Go Boom. Don't know what the fuck that is. Casual strategy. Jobs in there, okay. And Lego Voyages. That has to be a AAA game. No way something Lego can be AA. You're an indie. I feel like that's the thing, like people are heading towards that rather than a live service game. As much as there can be good live service games, there definitely are a lack of them with care put into them. You know, Do Rock Galactic is the only example of one I think would be good for everyone, because plenty of people are playing it, and for years to come hopefully there will still be players on it. But as a co-op experience it's great, and because you can visit the sort of, I don't know if it's a static battle pass, but there's always a battle pass and it's not paid for. There's no boost, you just play through it, and you can revisit old ones too to earn those rewards, which is amazing. No other game does that. Yeah, that's just generally good game design, and that's one of those few games where it works. where you can stop playing it and then come back to it, just so you can play another game in between. And that's why it works so well. That's why it's so respected among players. It's not asking you for your time. It's saying you can spend your time here, but you can play other games, and the developers do this themselves, by the way. They stream themselves, at least with their community manager anyway. They stream themselves playing it, but they also play other games. They played Helldivers, they played they played one recently I was surprised to see. I can't remember what it's called. It's like so fascinating to see because it's like it's super important. To have developers support these games, support each other, is a big deal. Without that, I seriously don't think developers would have a good reputation. Because it seems so disconnected as well. Like one of the problems with current games, like AAA games especially, they tend to appear as if they're sort of tone deaf and they don't know what a game is, which is very common, unfortunately. So there's never any sort of room for like looking at other games and thinking, oh yeah, we should probably try this sort of thing in our game. But I think Deep Rock actually takes notes from other games they've played. Yeah, they played indie games recently and looked at the stream. It's interesting. I'm not sure if it's their own game. I can't remember because they made their own publishing studio. Ghost Ship Games. Yeah, that's one of the problems. The more hours spent on one game, the less spent on another, which ends up crippling the market. And not to mention, when games are so heavily monetized, it's also off-putting. That's why I don't want to touch Fortnite or even some of the other apparently good live services. It's because it's just going to take so much time. And I just don't have the patience for that. And it just sucks because I want to play some of these games like Genshin Impact, I want to get started. But they take so much time to even experience the full extent of it. And you get players complaining that it's not long enough. Like, why are you fucking rushing behind it? Like, if you've got the time to complete it, why are you complaining about it not being long enough? Have you even experienced it? It's one of the things that really got me about that community. I played it for 4 years and I ended up quitting eventually, just to focus on another game. That again takes my time, Final Fantasy 14. And yeah, it's just some gross attitudes from communities like that. It doesn't help things. But again, it takes so much time to play it, and players are not going to touch it if they know it's going to be that long. They know it's going to be heavily monetized like it is. So it just fucking sucks. Like, nobody wants it. So I guess really the fear here is that there's an overlap between players spending time on older live service games compared to newer single player games, which ends up damaging that market and essentially leaves nothing left because, again, there's not enough monetization for that sort of thing. And when people are actually hooked into a live service game, like even Marvel Rivals, players just feel like they need to focus on that instead of anything else. And yeah, that causes plenty of damage because, again, it's another focus. I don't really know what else to say here. Like, it's just baffling that we're in this situation anyway. And in my opinion, I think that there needs to be some sort of regulations in the gaming market, like a regulatory body anyway that's not funded by billionaires but funded by players. This way, games can get a good reputation based on how good the games actually are towards players and their time. And it could give like a stamp of approval, like kind of that can change. Like in terms and conditions, you could write this. But it can, if a game changes, like say, like Fortnite used to be a PvE game. Many people don't know this for some reason. Um, and if a game like that changes from PvE to PvP, like it has, then it would revoke the stamp of approval, essentially, and they'll lose it because they've changed it and they need to re-go an evaluation like each time it's updated. That means that live service games will naturally have to be re-reviewed every time they update, but also have to follow a strict amount of rules just to get by, and that will hopefully limit the number of, again, like players on these things when they don't want to. Currently, the biggest thing with things that I see in gaming now is that people spend the most time with a game, often like shitboxing it, as we used to call it back in the day of like Battlefield. The people who do that end up drawing more attention to that game than the other games that exist at that time, and it's extremely damaging. People just want to know in the end, like, oh, if I touch this, am I gonna waste my life on it? Or is it really that good of a game, or is it just a grind? And that's what a regulation could do, essentially. It could tell you what it's about, what it's gonna do. It could tell you whether it's a very grindy game, like an MMO, like thousands of hours, or it could tell you where, if it's like monetized, so you know to avoid it, and it's sort of safer than the current age rating system that we have, because it means players can look at the individual filters and sort of, I guess, like, it could be like a flagging system, but you flag all the things that it has where there can be problems, and they could just do this anyway without gaming companies knowing. But basically a place where you can filter out games based on these set of flags, and where there's like a green flag, it's like, oh yeah, you're good to go. Short game hours, green flag. Long game hours could also be a green flag, but it's like user friendly, that sort of thing. But if it's something like Fortnite, or let's use Overwatch 2 as an example actually instead. Game hours to overballs about red flag, FOMO, red flag, very much has FOMO elements because it cycles around these limited items. I don't know if it cycles actually, but it shows limited items. That monetized, also monetization, red flag. It just needs to look at all these things a game does, from both when it launched and where it's at now, to see whether it's good or bad. And I think single player games that are updated can be excluded until they become a live service. Yeah, like some sort of body like that would help things, and for most gamers like us, with those with limited time, it will make a world of difference. Because that's what we need right now. We also need to know whether our games are got bad optimization, or it's like has buggy gameplay, or just bad gameplay. So it's something that needs to be addressed quite urgently. It's not really up to the government at this point, because they don't give a shit. They're going to be paid by the game lobbyists, so it doesn't matter what we do at the government. They can still try, but on a government level it's not going to change. So we need to start doing something ourselves, like grassroots, and actually funded by us, like even like subscribe to like a newsletter, or like even like packaged goods like a keyring. Like fuck, you could even make it big enough that it has like a mascot. Like that's what it could be. It could be a mascot celebrating good games, or even indie games. Like that's what you can do. It's like you pay for something, you get a reward, and you get a reward for keeping it alive, essentially. And that'd be really appealing to people. No doubt help. Just little gifts like that. And all for supporting a basically a person funded body where you can literally tell when games are shit, and when they're not, and when they're off, or even when they're not. It'd be so helpful, and also like safe for kids. Like that's the other thing, because like yeah, things like Genshin Impact and like Star Rail literally first mate, I think it's called, or first traps. Even Uma Musume. They appeal to kids because of that. And it's like, it's kind of gross, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I was like that once, so I'm not really sure. So it means it's like up to the parent in that case. Um, it really depends on the type of education that people have as well. Yeah, something that's actually funded by people, like, again, people with different backgrounds, people with like different parents, like, have war veterans reviewing these games, have LGBTQ plus people, people of colour reviewing these games, and they can highlight anything that's like out of the ordinary. Like some combat veterans could say, like, "Oh, this is extremely propagandist" or something, or extremely misleading in terms of realism or accuracy, and that'll give a good insight. And LGBTQ plus, it could be like representation, but it could also be highlighting discriminative or even sort of bait tactics where there's not actually representation, it's just one of those things to mislead you. And again, that's like the flag system, like these are all red flags, so they can point out, but if it's good, then it'll be a green flag. It's pretty simple, it's like, I don't know, not a traffic light system, but it could be actually. Yeah, why not, like, gaming traffic light system? I think that could work. Um, yeah, that's really the point. Look at games, see a simple list of filters, and you click on them, it has descriptions. It'd be a good thing to have. I think that would transform the game industry. And it would also incentivize players to stop giving a shit, and also companies like developers, they'll stop caring about it too. Because if there's like a big baddie like this, then yeah, it's gonna be the case that they really need to step up their game, pun intended. Start making better games. So that's really like a warning sign. It's like the overshadowing thing. It's like a, I don't know, revolution, maybe? Maybe it's exaggerated. But yeah, that's all I have to say. So, thanks for listening. I think people have some opinions on this. I think this is important, especially as a game enthusiast, even though I'm not playing massive amounts of games, I've definitely played them. Yeah, it's important. I hope to see games change for the better. So thanks for watching, and see everyone another time.